we make, that kind of bleeds over into a control factor, and we want to, have total control of the money. Well, our attitude should be it all belongs to God, and that God owns everything, including our jobs, including our cash flow, and we're charged to be good stewards of His money, period, cut and dry. I know I struggled with that early on in our marriage, being Italian and trying to control money and stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, the less and less and less I care about money, it seems like the more it finds me. Does that make sense? Because I'm giving God room to provide. Now, I got a simple formula. I pray every day like everything depends on God, but I work every day like everything depends on me. And when you kind of put that together, it's a pretty productive formula. So, and then we went into tithes and offerings and understanding about tithe. We always hear, well, we got to give 10%, and that's just a general statement. We talk about Malachi a lot, but the bottom line is, you're not really giving money, you're giving from your heart. It's like you're thankful to God for what He has given you. No matter how small it may appear right now, only He can turn it into something big. We don't need to try to promote ourselves. God brings the promotion. And when we do things that are according to the Word of God, then God can bring that promotion. God could bring that increase, whatever the case may be. In the sales realm, I have quotas. I don't worry about the quota from month to month. I just thank God for it. And month in, month out, He provides. Okay? And then we discussed the 10-10-80 rule. Everybody remember that? 10-10-80. We're going to use that a lot tonight. 10% tithing, 10% savings. Always pay yourself first. And then you want to budget the 80%. That's your standard of living. And so that's what we're going to go into tonight. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about, though, which is very important, is we have to establish an emergency fund. Is that spelled right? Okay. This is so important, an emergency fund. So what is an emergency fund for? Well, we could say for emergencies. But we got to declare the emergencies. We got to define the emergencies. So emergency fund would be something like, maybe you need new tires. Maybe something happened, all of a sudden a medical bill came up. You got to get a procedure done. You don't have the money for it. Anything that can be declared an emergency. It is not a put and take account. And what I mean by put and take, I put money in, I go to the mall on a weekend, I take money out. We're not, yeah. That comes in the budget sheet. Now, the emergency fund should never have any less than $1,000 in it. Because if you've got $1,000 in that emergency fund, generally you can take care of pretty much anything that pops up out of question. All of a sudden you get a call and one of the tires went flat. Nowadays, to get tires on most of the vehicles is a couple $100. So if you don't have an emergency fund, where is it coming from? Your weekly cash flow. It puts you in a hole. You rob from Peter to give to Paul. Okay? But if you have an emergency fund now, the question comes up, where do I put the emergency fund? You don't want to put it into a mutual fund or anything like that. You want to open up a savings account at the bank or the credit union, preferably the credit union. Yeah. And if you're disciplined enough, you can get a debit card to go along with that. But I'm just warning you, what can happen with that is if you got money in there and you're walking in the mall, you're going to hear that you got $1,000 in emergency fund. And you're going to say, oh, what's 45 bucks on this shirt? And you're going to start using for things that are not emergencies. Okay? So emergency fund is very, very important. All right, so we're going to talk about the 10-10-80 rule and how to apply it. Now, I've got these budget forms. We're going to go over these. James, you want to hand them out? Make sure everybody gets at least one. Ooh. Now, this is a very simple form, but it can be very, very practical. Let me have one too, because I don't know if I could read that all the way up on that screen. Thank you. All right. So, looking at this, we see monthly budget at the top, and then you see the months up at the top too. So, here's January. You can start in January, and you can circle it, cross it out, whatever you want to do. If you notice on the next line area, you got incomes. Income 1, income 2. I guess that could be husband and wife. Other income, that could be from maybe a part-time job, any type of interest income you're getting off your investments. If you got any type of side business or whatever, you want to make sure you account for all your income, and then you're going to total that underneath total income. So now that's the starting point. All right, now you got fixed expenses and you got variable expenses. Can somebody tell me the difference between the two? Yes, ma'am.
Your fixed would be like what's that, electric bill, but that
Yeah. Right. Yeah, anything that won't change from month to month. Okay? So you're going to list your mortgages here if you have a mortgage, or if you have rent. Okay, that can go there, fixed expense. Car note can go there. Trying to think what else. Car insurance can go there. Cell phone bill, your internet, all that would be considered fixed expenses. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I can't do anything about those to reducing the cost. That's not true. You can. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about insurance and investments. And I'm going to dissect property and casualty, which is car insurance, show you how to save money on that. Also your phone bill, things of that nature. And Robin does a good job of this. She always is going over to Cox, making sure we got the best deal going. She probably does that once every, I don't know, maybe every 6 months or something. Because a lot of times what happens, we just get into the habit of paying. We just accept it and we leave it alone. Okay, let's back up again. It's God's money. Don't do that. Show an effort, okay? Show an effort that you want to be a good steward of the money. All right, now let's talk about variable expenses. Groceries, big one. Gas, groceries especially. Okay, now if you notice, you have a budgeted and an actual. So how are you going to use this? On the fixed expenses, you pretty much can't do much on that as far as budget and actual. But when it comes to variable, this is where you can save a lot of money. So let's go to groceries. You've got to be totally honest with this. What falls underneath that category? everything spent on food or it's brought into the house, or even you buying stuff outside the house, like lunch and things of that nature. That could fall in that same category. So here's how you're going to do it. Y'all going to sit down together as a couple, and you're going to decide, based upon your income, what the budgeted amount is going to be. Okay? At the end of January, you're going to go back and check exactly how much you spent on groceries and eating out or whatever the case may be, and you're going to put it underneath the actual. And it's going to give you a real good sense of where your money's going for that category. It's a very simple process. Okay? Now, I got caught by my own form one time because Robin called me and she says, you know how much you spent eating out last month? Because let me tell you, when you swipe a debit card, you're not going to remember what you swiped a week ago. And if you're not staying on top of it, it can get out of hand. I said, no, I guess about $100 or whatever. It's $250. Now stop and think about that. And I'm not talking about eating at restaurants. I'm talking about just little stuff. Here's what you got to think about. That $250 could be in my pocket or somebody else's pocket. Okay? So, variable expenses. James said gas. You got to track your gas just to see. Well, how can I help that? Well, you can plan your trips a lot better instead of you get in the car, running to Walmart, go and get something, then coming back, then going here, going there. Right now, when I run appointments with Humana, I map through Google Maps, I map where I'm going. So I'm not doing zigzag, but I'm following a pattern of some type, okay? Because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to create awareness of where the money is going versus what you're trying to budget. Because, let's suppose, what do y'all spend average on groceries? How much a month? What do y'all think? Give me a number. All right, let's say 400. Suppose if you decide with the husband or the wife that your target's going to be $350 for February. So that's going to free up what? $50, right? Between what you did spend and the budgeted amount. Now, what you going to do with the $50? Right there, emergency fund. You want to fund that emergency fund. See, if you understand the concept is not to penalize you or get you to eat rice and beans and beans and rice, okay? But it's to transfer or shift money to where it's working for you instead of somebody else. Now, there's going to be times you can't help it. You got to eat out. I get that. You know, I'm on the road so much, I can't, I wish I could pack a nice little lunch and all that kind of stuff, and Robin used to do that. But we're so busy now, it's just impossible, and I don't know what my schedule's going to be. So I get what I can. But the bottom line is this whole form is trying to put a name on every dollar, income one, income two, other income, and total income that's coming into the house. Okay? What are some other variable expenses? Clothes. Okay? You need to track what you're spending on clothes. Okay? Should you never buy clothes? No. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to track where the money's going. And you'd be shocked when you make it's the little purchases really that hurt you the most. It's the little ones, okay? So with this budget form, I'm trying to identify just some small areas where I can cut back on. Because if I cut back on groceries, like $50, and I transfer that to emergency fund. If I cut back on eating out, and I transfer that money over to the emergency fund. Before you know it, you're going to see that fund starting to grow, and it's going to be exciting. Instead of having 1,000 in there, you may have 5,000 in there. But it's an emergency fund. Okay? Gasoline the same way. Listen, and let me tell you, I look for gas stations that have the lowest price. I found one the other day, it was $2.78 a gallon. So I make sure my next appointment was in that area, and I went by there and filled up. Okay. What are some other variable expenses we can think of? We got groceries, gifts. You can put gifts down there, especially this time of the year. Please do not get emotionally involved in gift giving for Christmas. Is it nice to give gifts? Absolutely. First of all, we know what time of the season it truly is. But put a limit. Rob and I were discussing this the other night. I think we decided to spend it on X number of dollars on each one of our 7 grandchildren. But we decided on spending a certain amount, okay? And I mean, if she goes over a couple dollars here or there or goes under, that's fine. But at least we have some type of plan going forward. You know, people don't plan to fail, they just simply fail to plan. And you got to have something, some way of putting and tracking your money, God's money, where it's going on a monthly basis. Now, Robin has her own little budget sheet, okay? It's adapted from something like this, but she's got it down, and when I walk by and she's paying the bills, she's got that notebook open, and she's got everything listed down, and she's checking it off like that. She's tracking. Because let me tell you something. You either play now and you're going to pay later, or you pay now so you can play later. Because I could think back when how old are you going to be tomorrow? Jeez. I was 39, 30 years ago. Goes by quick. So you're going to take your variable expenses. Now, on the last section down here, it says debt. Okay? Debt would be credit card debt. Folks, credit card debt is the worst, one of the worst debts that you can have. I think it's a $5,000 balance on a credit card. Paying the minimum will take you 13 years to pay off. Now, on the other hand, credit cards are good if you use them right. They'll help you build your credit. But you got to pay it off before the due date. Because if that payment comes in one day after that due date, they put that interest on you. And then you can have additional money to pay. So you want to make sure you pay that off. Now, something we're doing, Robin has an American Express Platinum. So we're putting a lot of our expenses on there and then making one payment to the American Express card, because that gives you points that you can apply toward travel. So when booking flights, did you do that this time for Florida? What did it save us? $137? There you go. Yeah. Now, my son-in-law, Stephen, and them, they use the card so much and they do a good job of it, they can get actually first-class tickets totally paid for by using that concept. What's that?
You can also mitigate the credit card debt.
Right.
Shopping around for credit card companies that offer
Yeah.
lower interest, but you got to be aware of this timetable involved. Like you said.
Yeah, you can always look for cars that have lower interest rates, or maybe even a low fixed interest rate, and transfer the balance to help you, you know, not pay as much in interest. Because see, that's not a fixed interest rate, that's a revolving interest rate. It's a variable. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you defeat that variable interest rate by making your payment on time. Because it's like a clock. If I had a clock up here, it's just like your mortgage. You could pay off your mortgage like, I think it's 7 or 8 years earlier by paying a bi-weekly payment. Because the mortgage interest starts at the first of the month and runs all month long. When you make a bi-weekly payment and they apply it, what that does, it stops the interest clock, and then they start over again and run the rest of the month. So there's less interest accumulating at the back end of your mortgage. But here's the thing. You got to make sure that the mortgage company, number one, accepts bi-weekly payments, and number two, they apply it when they get it. Because if they just accept it and hold it and apply it when it's due, then you're not defeating the interest cycle. And that's how they make their money, with that interest. But there's a lot of companies nowadays that'll take bi-weekly payments. And if you do it enough, then you can knock several years off your mortgage. That way you won't end up paying $350,000 for a $100,000 home. Another way of doing that is you can make one more payment at the end of the year, in December. Now, the key to that is you got to write a check, and you've got to put in the footnote, apply to principal. And they go, thank you, Merry Christmas. But it's a good way of knocking out your mortgage a whole lot sooner, too. So just make sure they take it, and then make sure they apply it. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you something, another way of eliminating some debt. Again, all this stuff takes involvement. It's not long stuff that takes every single day, but you got to buy into it, and you got to both agree to do it. Let's suppose I've got a, let's say, a credit card, and maybe it's got a balance of $400, and its minimum payment's $25. Then I've got a, let's see, a Macy's card, and its balance is $600, and it's got a payment of about $35. These are all minimum payments. Then I've got a Care Credit. Most of your medical places use Care Credit, and you got about a $2,500 balance. You just had your teeth crowned, and you got a balance there. 2 crowns. They ain't finished yet. They still got to polish them. And let's say that payment's $60 a month, and then you got a car note. We'll just do it like that. And your balance is like $14,500, and your car note's, let's say, $450. Just for. All right. So how do we eliminate debt sooner? Okay. If you're using your budget sheet and you uncover some dollars that you can transfer somewhere else, you find out who's got the smallest balance, which happens to be this credit card. And let's say you take an extra $20 and just put it on that. So now you're sending $45 to this one. This one gets paid off. You're still making all your regular payments. Now you've freed up $45, right? What most people do is says, well, now I can go spend $45. No, use that money to work for you. Take that $45 and transfer it to the Macy's card. So now you're spending, instead of $35, you're spending $80. Now this 600 gets wiped out a whole lot sooner. And you just keep going. You take the 80 when this is wiped out, and you apply it here, and now Care Credit's getting $140 a month. You've only taken $20 extra dollars to get this thing started. Okay? So now you got $140 working here. And then when this gets wiped out, you take that 140 and you apply it down here, and you pay off your car a whole lot quicker. That's called snowballing, or snowball, if you want to call it that. And that does work. That is one of the things that your boy there, Dave Ramsey, and myself learned in the early days. That's the thing he charges $900 for you to get. Well, I charge nothing. That's in the package. But it's called snowballing. It works for everything. And you can go as far as putting your mortgage in there if you want to. Because now all of a sudden, all you're doing is repositioning dollars, and you started off with 20, but now you're using that money. Just like out in California, when they have a fire, what do? Sometimes they start a fire to beat the fire, to put it out. That's the same principle. So you can be out of debt a whole lot sooner than the current track you're on. Okay? Any questions on that? Well, you don't do that. Yeah, once you get paid off a debt, that don't mean we're going to Macy's this weekend. No, you got to leave it alone until you get your debt. Then you go to the budget and you go, okay, how much did we budget for clothes? Okay, we budgeted $200 this month. Great. Let's go shopping. Use the Macy's card if you want, right? The bill comes in, you pay it off.
Whether this is true or not, I don't know. I've heard you do not pay it off completely. There's something on there. Is that false?
Yeah, that's false. It'll show up as open credit on your credit bureau report, but it's not like it's going to hurt you. Oh, here's the other thing on a credit card. I'm glad you brought that up. Good man. All right. If I've got a credit, what's it called? Credit limit. On my credit card. Let's say my card is, what's that little card I got? Capital One, what, 500, 600? They just raised it. 500. And let's say I got $300 on there. And I'm making a minimum payment. Is that hurting me? Yep. Right. Because, see, you got to keep that thing lower, way lower, because if it ends up being 30%, more than 30% of your credit limit, that's hurting your credit report. It's going to drive your score down. And these are all things that keep you from getting good interest rates on mortgages, that kind of stuff. So it's got a domino effect. It just don't hurt you right there. That's why if sometimes maybe you got a credit report that comes across your phone, like your credit score just went up or your credit score just went down, this is why right here. Because your balance has exceeded the 30% of the credit limit. And you got to get that paid down real quick. So, all right, any questions on that? Yeah, so it's like FSA account or HSA, health savings account. Yeah. So.
That's also what puts people in debt, because they don't have something like that, and then it gets to the beginning of the year, you start going to the doctor again, you get all these surprise bills, and then you don't have that money for things.
That's why it's important to have this right here.
But you gotta know what your fixed amount
So on this monthly budget, you should have one for every month, a sheet for every month so you can make copies. Because you're going to want to know the actual compared to the budgeted. And what's cool about this, if you allow it, it promotes unity between a husband and a wife. Because say like if we're looking at the form and me and James are married.
You're big Jim, I'm little Jim.
Yeah. And so we're sitting down together. We're not talking what each other has been doing. We're looking at the form. So we're casting any type of dispersion on the form. And so if Jim looks at it, James looks at it, and he sees where this has kind of gotten out of line, then he's got to admit, okay, I need to work on that. Or the wife looks at it and says, yeah, okay, I need to work on that. Let's work together to get this in line. And so what you're doing is you're creating unity which God loves, but you're also trying to be a good steward, which God can bless. Make sense? So this is going to be the bad guy, not each other. Not each other. You can't point fingers. You just put it down there. You recognize it. You accept it. And then you decide to make adjustments. And they do not have to be major adjustments. Just small little adjustments along the way. And if you keep these budget sheets for a whole year, at the end of the year, you'll be able to see exactly where all your money went. Okay? Any questions? Now, we're talking strictly emergency fund. We're talking strictly, no, we're not doing investments tonight. We'll do that another night. But your focus has got to be, how can I fund that emergency fund? Now, remember I showed you the 10-10-80 rule. If you do not have an emergency fund right now, that 10% savings can start your emergency fund. I'd rather you do that than just try to have a savings account. Let's establish this first. That way, if an emergency pops up at sometime next year, and it will, you'll have that to pull on. What was it? Was it your car or my car that had a tire? No, yours. Yeah, you had a bad tire or something like that, and you had to get the tire redone or buy a new tire, and we had the money in the emergency fund, and you went and got it and went and got the tire fixed and something like that. Yeah. Couldn't have been my car. No, I got those cheap tires. You're the one with the expensive car. I drive a Volkswagen. She drives an Audi. But that also gives you peace of mind, too. So as soon as you can before the new year, go to the credit union or a savings account and start your emergency fund. You can start it for as little as, I think some places, $50. But get it started. And then start funding it, looking for ways. And you know, I don't know when Robin does it, but whenever I'm working with people and we're going over budgets and stuff like that, it's almost like you get excited because now it becomes a game. How much money can we put in the emergency fund? So it's a win-win situation. All right, any other questions about the form, about anything we discussed tonight? What's that?
Those are bad credit cards, right?
Which ones?
The ones that have credit limit.
Oh yeah, you don't want to have a balance over that. I mean, over the 30%.
500, something like what, 190,
150.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So.
Yeah, but see what happens is, if you go above that, then the credit picks it up like you're not paying your bills, like you're a bad credit risk.
Unless you pay it off that
Yeah,
first month.
yeah. Well, that's the key to it. If you can pay it off in the first month, that's why you got to have a budget, you know, because it's easy to run plastic, especially this time of the year. You know, we so yeah, And I look forward to hearing reports. Say, yeah, I got an emergency fund started. And look, we're building it up. Now, you can also put on this form if you want, vacation fund, maybe mission trip, like Colombia, budget that in. You can put whatever you want in there and track it, because you got to make sure you know where pretty much every dollar's going. And this is not something to tighten you up and get fearful about anything. Don't let it do that. What does it say in Habakkuk? To write the vision on tablets so you don't grow weary in going after it. This is a form of that. That's all it is. Very simple. All right, any questions? All right, I need y'all's input. The next one's going to be on insurance and investments. Okay? Now, let's see, what is today? The 30th, 31st? 30th. So the next meeting would be what? December 7th, right? Do y'all think we should go ahead and do it then, with getting that close to the holidays, or kick it and do it in January? It's up to y'all. It don't matter to me. The next meeting. What do you think, Lynn? Two more. Okay, and we'll go ahead and do that then. So next week we'll talk about insurance and we'll talk about investments. What? What? Okay, so what I might do is just cover everything in the last one, and I'll be the last one, because I just got insurance and investments left. I can cover both of those. We're going to talk about life insurance. We're going to talk about car insurance. We're going to talk about health insurance. Now, I'm not going to go into the benefits of it and all that stuff, just the proper way to buy it. And then we'll talk about investments. Okay? So we can do it all next week. So next week will be our last week, because we're going to Florida to see grandbabies for Christmas. And it's the only time we can go. Very important. There wouldn't be no clout in my shout if I didn't go. So, okay, that's it. If anybody